Mr. Speaker, or now Madam Speaker Pro Tem, you see the number, 35 trillion. Guess when we hit it? We should be very, very excited and proud of ourselves. We did something that so many economists said we would never get to this quick. My math says this coming Friday, 3 p.m., the United States gross debt will cross over 35 trillion.
Hello, everyone. So let's talk about something important. First of all, don't forget, subscribe and like this channel, okay? Thumbs up, always helpful. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the situation with the national debt. I want to, hold on. I know it's kind of boring, but I want to show you some actual information that I got, right, from Congress. I want to show you this video that is actually very good. It explains exactly what's happening. Take a look at it, listen.
So let's walk through another little factoid. My math basically says this year, 45.68% of all the income tax collections, receipts, your government takes.
Going to care, I'm telling you, you're going to care, because soon all that money is going to come due, which we will never be able to pay.
And I guess part of my anger is I love some of the people I work with here. They're smart, they care, but they run away from me when they see me coming because I want to talk about this stuff. This chart is the pie chart of America's spending. Do you see this number? 74% is in the red. The red doesn't get a vote member of Congress. That is on autopilot. It's called mandatory. It's earned benefits. Some of the benefits you get because you're part of a certain tribal group or you fall below a certain income, but this is earned. You see the blue? It's defense and non-defense. Every dime in defense is borrowed. Every dime of what we call non-defense discretionary is borrowed. And a wedge of this over here is borrowed. And when you see over here, when we say net interest, I've tried to explain the net difference between net interest and gross interest. Net interest this year will be $892 billion. That's interest we pay to people out in the world. Your pension fund, a nice family on the other side of the world, the union retirement fund over here, they buy U.S. debt. The other debt is we owe to the trust funds. We've borrowed the money from the trust funds, but we still have to pay it back.
So what is the solution? What is the impact of not being able to pay? Well, at some point, and this is kind of the idea of the video, at some point, we are going to have a problem with the ability to service the debt.
We still have to pay it interest. So it's one of the great cons we do in our budgeting here is, well, its gross interest is only $890 billion, Schweikert. Why do you keep going around saying 1.2 trillion? Interest just this year.
Look at that. The servicing of the debt is going to be a problem. Now, you're saying, well, you know what, at the end of the day, I don't really care because we're going to keep refinancing it. Fine. But how long is that going to last? When is it, and this is the question you need to worry about, when is it that the market says no more? Meaning, we need to keep refinancing this debt every single time, right? Because you go out and you have to pay for it, and then you owe money, and then you go to the market and you issue a certain amount of debt. How much more can you issue? This past week, we were trying to place $25 billion in an auction, and I show you the chart, right? Show you the chart in a previous video that shows that we're having difficulties placing it.
So let's actually walk through a board I don't think I've ever shown before. Fiscal year 2024, here's sort of where we're at to date. We've taken in $3,755 billion. Do you see the red here? Okay, the red is the individual income tax. Your country is an income tax-based economic system, where other countries may rely more on a value-added tax, which is a really regressive tax, crushes particularly the middle class. The blue over here, when you start to look at that, this is functionally, we call it social insurance and retirement programs and Social Security. Well, that's actually going out the door immediately, and we have to borrow some to cover it. The blue over here, well, that's actually corporate income taxes.
People are, the dealers are getting a bit worried about the ability to place that debt. We had enough, we have too much, right? So, and you could see in all those numbers how much is that we need to raise. So the more you need to raise, the more difficult it becomes. And the issue with this debt is that it deals with topics that nobody really wants to talk about. Taxes, health. Exactly. That's an issue that we need to wrestle with all the time. Because we're not healthy, it's becoming expensive to carry this huge amount of healthcare bills.
Let's knock down some of the craziness that keeps being said around here. This is a brand new chart for me. U.S. fiscal dynamics now in. Our tax revenues are up. We're taking in more receipts. Technically, they're not revenues. Revenues are what you earn. Receipts are what you confiscate. So just a bit of tax lingo there. But it's our spending. You see, tax receipts are up, but our spending is way up. And when you see the white line over here, deficits, it's just basically the derivative of, hey, tax receipts are up, but we're spending faster than those receipts are going up, therefore you get a deficit. If you get someone who says, well, those 2017 tax cuts, no, tax receipts are up. I have another chart I'm going to show you here. Corporate tax rates, or corporate tax collections, don't think about the rate, it's about what you take in, are actually above the mean. And how much of this spending is the Orwellian named Inflation Reduction Act?
We want to retire. We want to have the money, but that's, we only have a couple of years ahead of us, maybe 9 years before we run out of money for the Social Security. Then what happens? Well, either you raise taxes some more, or you cut on some of the, let's cut some of the entitlements that we have.
So when was the last time this place actually will?
You say, well, you're not going to be able to repay this debt, ever. Then, like I said before, either you get paid less on your retirement, you have to wait longer for retirement, we got to cut taxes, or we got to cut entitlements, we're going to cut a bunch of things that are we take for granted today. The market is not going to keep financing us forever. We're at $35 trillion. That is a lot of money.
Madam Speaker Pro Tem, I'm going to skip a bunch of the boards and just try to close this out with just a couple more. This is 2023. Total outlay, total spending, 6.1 trillion. Total receipts, 4.4 trillion. So what is that? 1.7 trillion borrow. This year, borrowing is going to be about 2.25. And this is a time where the economy is doing remarkably well. Now it's subsidized, so it's basically a sugar high, but it's still doing well. And now our problem is, in 2023, gross interest was about 700 billion. This year we're heading towards 1 trillion, 140, 160 billion dollars. But this differential here, almost every dime of that 1.7 trillion borrowing.
Okay, and the issue is at some point we're going to be at $56 trillion. Now, of course, if the market says okay, it's okay. But keep in mind, right now we're worried about corporate debt, corporate viability. We're not even considering government debt. And remember what I said, you make money when everybody else is selling, that's when you're buying. And you're buying when everybody else is selling. And you're selling when everybody else is buying. You want to do and you want to understand what is going on so that you could take actions before. So if you have a portfolio of huge portfolio of stocks and that $35 trillion business is running around and you don't know exactly what's going to happen to it, maybe it will impact you. Maybe it is time to protect yourself. Maybe, just maybe. So it's important to understand these concepts. It's extremely important because you need to familiarize yourself with what people are not talking about. Nobody's talking about this. The candidates really don't want to talk about it. I mean, yes, we got a tax rate, the tax cut, but did that really help any? And does this mean that, yeah, the idea is that you cut taxes for the corporation and then they hire more people? Did that really happen? So it's a very, very difficult, complex issue that needs to be faced. And more importantly, because this is what this channel is about, I need to explain to you what's going on. You need to understand. Because if you don't understand, who's going to explain it to you? By the time they explain it to you, by the time we talk about it, it is too late. You want to know about these things right now. You need to understand what this is, what this could be, what could happen, right? You want to be like Warren Buffett. Remember, Warren Buffett sold his stock portfolio. He sold his stock portfolio in November, in May and in June and July of this year. Why? Because he said, we're overpriced. There's some issues we have to deal with, and that's what they're doing. So make sure of that. Make sure you follow. Make sure you understand. Make sure you keep up. Because if at some point the dealers decide this is it, I mean, there's a level because we're not paying it back. They're going to realize, and we're going to talk about it more and more and more and more. They're going to say, you know what, this is an issue now. I mean, it's one thing to talk about unemployment and to talk about whether the Fed is going to raise or lower the rate. These are tiny little issues. This one is a major one. Why? It's like COVID, right? We're going to have to deal with it in a very, 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 very strong way because we know we cannot pay it back. So you're going to have to deal with it. Or at least you as an investor needs to understand what could potentially happen if we don't deal with it. Therefore, that is the key. That is what you need to understand. Keep that in mind going forward. Be aware, be knowledgeable, and this is what this channel is about. This channel is about teaching you what's going on and understanding.